All the content contained in this webcast is for informational purposes only. The investments and strategies contained in this webcast may not be suitable for you. Please consult your own independent financial advisor before making any investment or trading decisions. Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of PremarketInfo.com, where we prepare you for Procter Gamble's disappointing announcement and Big Bad Ben Bernanke's announcement on the direction of interest rates.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of news coming out after 2:15. The two-day Fed meeting is ending today, so that could be muted action before that, and then maybe we'll have some volatility after that, Joel.
Okay, the post-expiration rally continued yesterday, getting up to 1357. That would be a good number on the upside. Haven't approached that in the pre-market. On the downside, 1346 has been the Globex low, kind of the middle of nowhere. So let's keep an eye on 1348, just ahead of that level. Got a lot of market movers, and one of them is the Big Ten, and Procter & Gamble just continues to disappoint Wall Street. What are they, not selling a lot of toilet paper or something?
I don't know. They're lowering guidance here. This had to almost be expected. I mean, this stock, we've been talking about how it hasn't been participating in the rally. We've had Johnson & Johnson has just taken off. Often those stocks do trade together, not in the last month. Johnson & Johnson's just been on fire. Procter & Gamble has not participated whatsoever. And now they come out lowering guidance, 75 to 79 cents expected in the next quarter. The estimates were 82. So that's a disappointment. And the stock is really getting beat up here too. Trading at 60.78 right now. We're through that critical 61 support level where we bottomed out in early June. A stock could have 60 on the mind. I think 60 would be absolutely enormous on this. I don't know if I see it getting down there today. How low did that thing get in the pre-market?
Looking at the pre-market activity, Dennis, this got down to 60.36.
60.36, so just above that 60 level. And it's traded quite a bit of stock here, too, 136,000 shares. So it's actively trading below 61, which would indicate that maybe it does indeed open below that 61. But keep an eye on that June low. If it opens below there, maybe use that as a little resistance. If it opens above there, I'd still use that as support. We're at 60.65, but we are over an hour from the open.
Yeah, I mean, it's some volume compared to the average daily volume between 6 and 10 million. Got to keep an eye on that 60.36, which we did hit in the pre-market. 61 has been the high since we've made the low. That's old support, so it's going to be new resistance. Dennis, you pretty much have nailed this one. $60 is the psychological support level, of course. Below that, you've had a low in the higher 59, so I would keep an eye on that. But I think the main thing to keep an eye on for Procter & Gamble today will be that 61, using that as a swing number. Also got some other news out there on Pepsi-Cola.
Yeah, Pepsi, this isn't as bad a news as Procter & Gamble. They just said foreign exchange rates might hurt their earnings outlook here for the full next year. So they're not saying that the business is weak, just saying that foreign exchange could hurt it a bit. So stock is trading down about 30 cents right now, trading 69.01. Very light volume. I don't think this is going to be nearly as beat up as the Procter & Gamble is. So it even wouldn't surprise me if this thing started to turn around. But this stock has actually performed quite well. Although the last 4 days here, you see these highs in the 69.50 area? We had yesterday's highs, or I'm sorry, 69.74. We had 69.75, 69.74, and the day before 69.66. So quadruple top almost, you could say. And the funny thing is, there's some institutional size at 69.75. So we always talk about how those high frequency guys will sell in front of that institutional size, and that's what they're doing here again. Look at these tops here when we look at the 5-day chart. All kinds of action, all kinds of high frequency resistance in the 69.70s, and they seem to be winning right now as the stock is coming down.
Well, at least they use good risk-reward ratios, Dennis, right? If you're selling at 74 and the size is 75, they have nibbled at that. Very tight range in Pepsi yesterday. What our traders need to focus on is the 69.20 level. That was the high from Friday on expiration, and then made a lower, on Friday, correct. And then it made that low yesterday, 69.20, trading a tad below that in the pre-market. I would use that as resistance as well as the close. Of course, above that, you look at to go back up and test that 69.75 again. Perhaps the fifth time will be the charm.
It's always hard when stock does have bad news to start trading positive, but you never know. We had FedEx that had it seemed like bad news yesterday, and that stock just took off. We almost should just talk about that because it was a crazy move for FedEx yesterday. The stock obviously coming out, and it appeared to lower guidance. I didn't exactly say those words, but for whatever reason, the stock opened up at the low and basically just bounced straight up. So it opened up, I think it was down a buck and a half, and just went straight up from that over 4 points, topping out I think at 91.93 was the high, peeling back off that a bit. No trades here this morning on FedEx to report as of yet, but wow, what a move off those lows, Joel.
Yeah, I actually have 91.95 as a high,
Okay.
but who knows where that printed. I would use that 91.95 area all the way up to 92.28. That was the high on April 3rd. Should be pretty good resistance. If you can't get some follow through that $92 level, I expect FedEx to come and trade a little bit, not quite back down to 88, but kind of retrace some of that big move from yesterday. Since we were talking about Pepsi, we haven't talked about our buddy
Oh yeah.
Coca-Cola in a while. It's kind of had a nice march up here. Seems to be running into a little trouble though at 76.50 and below. You have any size in the book there at that level, or is that just good old fashioned selling?
It might just be just a level there. I don't see much around there, so I don't know if there's actual any institutional size to back that up. But somebody's selling some up here in the low 67s to mid six or low 76s to mid 76s. So, and the stock with Pepsi pulling back, these stocks often do trade together. So keep an eye on Pepsi if you're trading Coke, because Pepsi could be your leader here today. I don't know if I really see Coke rolling over here though.
Double bottom 75.66 to 75.77. So just treading above that right now. If it doesn't hold that level, you do have some minor support at 75.42, but could easily slide back to the $75 level. J Bell Circuit trading up in the pre-market.
Lots of news here after the bell on this one. They had earnings. They looked to actually disappoint on their guidance a bit. But then, I guess Research in Motion cut Celestica yesterday. And they think Jabil might pick up some of that business. So I think that's why Jabil's actually getting a pop on a not so great earnings report. Looking at the stock here, this has been rolling up. I gotta think $20 a big psychological number for this. Wouldn't surprise me if it paused there at least. If it does start to continue to move up, it's trading 1976 right now, but very light volume here.
Roller coaster for this stock. When the initial news came out, it traded as low as 18.55, and
Wow.
then that rim news must have come up. We hit a high in the pre-market of 2010. If you go to the dailies, we do have a high at 2014 on May 29th.
Yep.
So keep a real close eye on that level. I mean, this is just not a pretty chart, but kind of looks like it's trying to form a little I could even see maybe a head and shoulders bottom here in this stock.
Kind of looks like that. That reverse head and shoulders Joel's talking about, your whole neckline here. You got the little head there, and we're not big pattern traders here on Premarket Info, but that one pretty much looks like a pretty good pattern there. So maybe it is bottoming out. I'd love to see it get above that 20, because then it would open up a bit. So, but 20 is going to be the first test, I think, for this one.
Even though it's not exactly in the same, exact same kind of company, Cisco, you got to take a look at this chart. It looks like it's trying to get back into this gap area.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. They're actually getting an upgrade from BMO Capital. Not a huge influential upgrade there, but something to keep in mind if you're trading it today. Yeah, we had this gap down back in May, looking, I think it was from 1848 all the way down to 1732. So if we start to get in that area, this gap area here, there's not a lot of reference points in there, and the stock can move relatively quickly through that area. Now, Cisco is always a thick stock. It's not going to fill a buck and a half in a day or two, but just something to be aware of. Whenever you have gaps in the charts, stocks that come into those gap areas again, because there's no reference points, often move through those areas with a little more ease.
Okay, and just finishing up on this theme, we haven't looked at Rim in a while. Is Rim breaking out here over $11?
I don't know. We still always say that this is kind of nothing goes straight to zero, but not saying Rim's going to zero, but you can kind of read between the lines on my thoughts on the company there. I mean, you can argue it's above $10 here. It bottomed in about 4 trading sessions ago at 10 again. It has been holding up. Seems to be some pretty good resistance in the low 11s. It's had a couple multiple tops there. I'd like to see it get above that $11 before I'd probably get interested. But I don't know if it's going to take a lot for me to get interested in RIM.
Yeah, just keep an eye on that $11 level. Adobe Systems taking it on the chin this morning.
Yeah, Adobe came out last night with earnings as well. Disappointing outlook there. Actually, I don't know if they reported, but they definitely had a disappointing outlook. No, they did report, and they had disappointing outlook too. $30.99 is where it's trading right now after closing at $32.89. Stocks trade about 50,000 shares. Looking, there is multiple lows here in this whole 3109. Call the whole area $31. The stock is pausing there in the pre-market, so maybe it holds, maybe it can bounce off that area. If not, maybe has 30 on the mind, but I think 31 might give it may stall here and find a little bit of support here for starters.
Yeah, 50,000 shares, which isn't a whole lot traded in the pre-market. Looking at the pre-market low 30.58. Since that, you've got to bounce up to 31.20. So could get a lot of trading in between those levels. You're right, a lot of lows clustered around the $31 level, and also slightly below that at 30.67 was a low on June 6th. But Adobe makes the acrobat, right?
The reader, yeah.
The reader. I mean, you got to cut. I mean, I've been using that for years. I don't pay anything for it, so I don't know. I don't know how.
I think it's included in a lot of the packages, and that's how they make it licensed out that way. But regardless, they've been a company that's done, okay here. Let's look out long term just a little bit on that. I mean, over the last 10 years, really gone nowhere. So keep that in mind whenever you're trading a stock. But $31 maybe finds a little support.
Okay, just to touch on a few of the Big Ten. Apple Computer continues its assault on 600. Got up to 590 yesterday. Sure doesn't move up like it used to.
Well, the day before I had a pretty good move there.
Right.
The day before I had a pretty good move. So we had this huge run up here, kind of consolidated. And you often see this. You'll see a stock have a big move, 11, $12, pause, and then try to consolidate for a day or two. And then often what I see happen is that move continues. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in Apple. I was saying by the end of the week, I wouldn't be surprised if I've seen this thing at $600. I'm still going to say that. I know I only have a couple of trading sessions. Well, I guess with today's, we've got 3 trading sessions left to get to my $600 weekly target.
Okay, and IBM, if you prescribe to the whole number theory, it worked yesterday in IBM, making a high at 199.99. Was there any decent sellers at 200?
Of course, that's why, so you've seen about 65,000 shares there at 200, and those high frequency guys, again, lean on those sellers, so they find those guys, they lean on them, and that's why you've seen this thing top out in 1999. It got there, couldn't hold, sold off $1 towards the end of the day, so the high frequency guys were happy. Not sure if the longer investors were happy. So, but if it keeps coming up playing with that level, eventually it will take it out. It's not enormous size, but it's enough to stall the stock, and that's what you've seen yesterday. Just stalled at the 200, pulled back a bit, and we'll have to see if it can test it again today and take it out.
Okay, Microsoft blasted through the double top to the 30.05 level, stuck its head above 31 before peeling back to close at 30.70. I guess people like the idea of Microsoft having a tablet.
Yeah, it's funny though. The stock opened and it really wasn't up very much, but then throughout the day, people just kept coming in and buying the thing. Obviously, well, not even really in the first hour they were buying it for the most part, but it was surprisingly not that strong in the pre-market though. So I guess if you were buying this thing in the pre-market yesterday at the open, you could have held it for an hour or two and almost made $1. So peeled back a bit here. I think the move's a little bit overdone. But it's definitely going to get buyers here, all in the low 30s, because that's where we've broken out from. We had resistance there before it becomes support. So I'd keep an eye all in the low 30s. I'd expect you to get some pretty good buyers if we can peel back. But then keep in mind, I always have that 2-day move theory. So if you think there's going to be follow through here, we start breaking out above yesterday's high, probably start to open up again, possibly even to that high that we had a 31.54 back on May 11th.
And just in the same theme here, I guess there was a disappointment that Barnes and Noble wasn't included in this new announcement or whatever. But since that news of the initial partnership with Microsoft, this thing's been straight down, hitting 14 bucks yesterday,
Yeah.
14.08 being the low,
Yeah.
trying to fill that gap down to 1370.
Yeah, it's almost filled it now. They did have earnings yesterday too, and you can see how much we're interested in it because we didn't even mention the earnings yesterday on this thing. Sure, okay, they had a partnership with Microsoft. That's why the stock had this huge gap before, but kind of a ridiculous run up is what it was, and the markets figured it out 2 months later, giving it all back. So I'm not very interested in this one, especially since it doesn't appear that they're involved in this tablet.
Okay, GE cleared out the sellers at 20, got up to 2014, peeled back, closed right at 20. Is this the time where GE holds 20 bucks and marches to 21.50?
That closed the day before at $20 too. Did it close out two closes
Two
at the
days
same
ago.
price? Oh, 2 days
Friday.
ago. 2 days ago it closed at 20 even. So I don't know what to say. At least it held 20 for the day. It's hard to say. We've had a heck of a run up here. That's one thing to keep in mind. This thing, a huge the low beta stock that it is. Stocks run from $18 to 20 in about 2 weeks. So you've got to be careful if you are buying it because the stock could peel back just because it had such a run up. But I wouldn't be surprised if it wanted to go and test that 2036 area. That's where we topped out back on March the 19th, and then 2 or 3 days later, March 21st, we topped out 2032. Let's call that whole area 2030. I think that might be where it wants to test. If it can get above there, maybe to start thinking about 21.
Okay, if you want to buy this thing on weakness, you had a double bottom from Friday and Monday at 1975, and then the low from yesterday at 1985. So if you're not trying to pick a top, but you want to sell it on weakness, if it breaks through major support, that level's 1975. Well, there, Dennis, S&Ps are just very quiet this morning, just meandering above settlement here at 1352.75. Once again, you do have the results of the Fed meeting coming out. So let's just use the parameter on the upside, that 1357. Don't be too faked out. If we do get above that, that's going to be a big level to trade off this morning. And coming back on the downside, let's keep an eye on the Globex low at 1346. Any closing comments for our traders?
Just keep in mind, Bernanke will be speaking here this afternoon. I'd expect it to be kind of quiet, especially what we're seeing in the pre-market appears to be quiet ahead of that. After that, it could get a little bit more volatility, so just don't take off and think, oh, it's just going to be a quiet day, because after 2:15, you never know what happens. Once Bernanke starts talking, the market can start moving.
Okay, folks, have a good day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.